Welcome to No Question About That. This is the tactical review of the season. I'm Ed with Dharnish. We're going to do this in 3 parts because there's so much to talk about. So part 1 is going to be the start of the season all the way up to the autumn. It was a mixed bag of stuff. And then we're going to do Amorim's downfall and what led to it. And then finally we're going to talk about Carrick Ball and United's glorious resurgence. We're back, baby. Dharnish, are you back? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to getting this in the can because there's so much that happens during the season and you get so caught up with it. Even when, I know it's been 1 game a week for Manchester United, but even going back to like the first games, there's so much stuff that you miss and there's so much stuff that you forget that was contextualized during the season and other stuff that was going on. I just forgot how many minutes Mount and Ugarte played at the start. So, yeah, I mean, it's giving me nightmares, really. But, yeah, no, I'm good.
There you go. Well, Mason Mount managed to start the season and end the season fairly well. Not much in between. Ugarte was shit all the way through. So we'll get onto those and others. So, starting with that Arsenal game. I mean, we won't do a blow-by-blow on Arsenal, but it's funny looking back on the Arsenal game just how much that was Arsenal's season in a microcosm, really. I mean, they scored by rugby tackling our goalkeeper. Score from a corner, and they would do that all season and get away with it. Funnily enough, I just saw a piece from Dale, what's his name, who's now at the BBC, was at ESPN, does all the VAR reviews. Arsenal benefited from the most VAR mistakes this season. They also got away with 3 penalties and 3 red cards that they should have conceded. Who thunk it? And Arsenal fans still claim that the PGMOL are out to get them. Evidence, lads, evidence. So, anyway, I mean, the Arsenal game was kind of interesting start because Amorim decided right at the start of the season he wasn't having Andre Onana, but Altay in goal who slapped at 1. He wasn't to last very much longer. And United went with the same formation, 3-4-3, and went quite long in a lot of this game. And that was a sort of feature of the first part of the season, wasn't it? Just how direct United were. So, I mean, I've got in my notes here, it was still Amorim ball.
Yeah, very much so.
After Arsenal, we were all like, yeah, that wasn't bad, but it was actually still quite easy for Arsenal to defend against us. So what did you make of this first few games of the season?
So I think going up and from Arsenal up until, I think there's a good amount of results later on, I think around about October time. But from Arsenal onwards, there's still this whole adage of we're still doing Amorim ball. We've got new players. Sometimes it looks better, but still kind of looks bad. And what happened in the Amorim era, I think, for the first half of the season is eventually the results did find him out because it wasn't good enough football for it to look good for as long as it did, even if there was good parts in that. The Arsenal game looked better than what we did last season because people forget how bad we were last season. I genuinely, apart from Bruno Fernandes's performance last season, we were very, very close to doing what Spurs did this season and flirting with relegation often.
Yeah.
But I think round about Arsenal win. Mount false 9, by the way. And
Mount started as a false 9, yeah. Cunha started in this game. So did Mbumo. No Sesko, though. He arrived at the club not fit because he hadn't had a proper pre-season and had that lower back injury. So he was still sort of integrating some of the players, wasn't he?
I don't think Sesko was fit till I think Carrick came in charge, genuinely. Or, I mean, he definitely wasn't informed till Carrick came in charge, but he wasn't fit for a long, long time. I think he might have arrived injured, but
yeah.
I think the first half of the season is contextualized by this Grimsby Town game as well, because that just, I don't know how you felt when that game happened. When United lose in the manner that they did in that way, it happens, I don't know, every season. The weight of the world just feels like it's on you. I'm a podcaster, right, who talks about United every week, but even I could feel the pressure then. So it's like, so what happened in that first half is they kept winning games at home because every time they'd go home, the fans, the team, everybody was so desperate for a win. They were so desperate to go against the pressure. The fans kind of roared them into a win, and they just were more intense playing Amorim's football and managed to score. It wasn't really necessarily Amorim's football resulting in that many goals or chances. So guess how many away games we won from the first 10 games?
Once.
Right, okay. I didn't think that you'd get it, but yeah, it was one. One away win in the first 10. The Arsenal game was kind of okay. The Burnley game was better, but again, it's just because they're playing at home and they're a little bit more intense. They're roared on by the crowd. They press a little bit higher. Mount's in there, so he's winning balls up the pitch.
We had Fulham in between, didn't we?
We had Fulham
away.
in between, and then we got absolutely smashed against Manchester City because he went away, played this really weird thing where it's like 5 players in the middle of the pitch, try and press them, but City are too smart, so they played around us. Then you go back to Chelsea at home. Chelsea did what Chelsea do, got a red card. Thanks very much for that. Win that game. Go away against the Brentford, and again, it's the same. We're doing Amarin ball, and teams just know exactly what to do. I think there'll be 2 screenshots that we release with this. The Fulham and I think the Brentford game are examples of it, where it's 3 at the back. Bruno Fernandes is far too deep next to Casemiro. There is Mason Mount or Cunha that drops, and as soon as the centre-backs follows the player that drops and it goes back to the central midfielder or the defender, that's it. Like, that is it. That's where the attack stops. There's nothing else you can do because that's what we are doing. And all of a sudden, you're not playing at home, so we can't score goals from that.
Yeah, United struggle with build-up all through this first period of the season. Well, in fact, all of Amorim's tenure, United struggled with build-up. And it's part of the reason why we ended up... I think in this first part of the season, there were some games where we played over 40% long balls. Yeah, try and jump on the second ball, which proved to be a reasonable tactic. But it's amazing that, the hipster's choice in Ruben Amarim played this system where United just couldn't build up. Michael Carrick, 0 experience in the top level, comes in and suddenly we're tiki-takaing it around all over the place and able to build up. I mean, we still have problems. And by the way, with Ederson coming into the team, we'll still have problems with build up. But we'll talk about him later. But it was a real feature of this first part of the season, the inability to build up and the ability of opposition teams to just swarm over our defence, stop us building up, and then get in behind our defence and those 2 central midfielders as well.
Yeah, I think it's, again, I'm banging on about the same thing, but I can't get over how pertinent it was the night and day towards home and away, because every win that we got in the first 10 games was at home. Apart from that one away to Liverpool, where, again, if you go back and look at the highlights, I think they hit the post 3 times. They missed a bunch of one-on-one chances. We were still there because we were confident then, and we were coming off 2 wins. But the point remains, it's completely different team away from home, and it was because we're still living and dying by this build-up that there was just too many examples of it not working. And you have one of our best creative players in Bruno Fernandes too deep. So the problem with that isn't just the fact that you have the best decision maker in the team in terms of attack so deep. The problem is, okay, well, if our number 10 drops in Mbeumo and Cunha and gets it to Fernandes and he plays it forward, you've got a problem because it's Casemiro who's getting on the end of that pass, or it's Mount who's getting on the end of that pass, or it's Cunha who's getting on the end of that pass. They're going to try and do something that Bruno Fernandes can do, and they're going to make the wrong decision in attack and get it to the wrong player. So that's basically what was happening in sort of the first part of the season. Whilst there was some good in that, I think that was mainly because the attack that we signed was finally clicking.
Yeah, it's a very good point. When Bruno Fernandes got the ball in that first part of the season, deep areas, the quality in front of him wasn't the same as if he was there. The other thing I thought was interesting with Bruno in those deeper positions, he just doesn't like the ball on the half turn. So if you look at how Kobe Mainoo takes it now in deeper positions, it really doesn't matter how much pressure he's under. He's able to turn, evade a challenge, evade the press and get it forward. And United's build-up is a lot better. And it's not because Bruno wasn't brilliant in central midfield, because he was. We talked about it, right?
Yeah.
I think you were singing his praises more than most.
Oh, God.
But that build-up piece was difficult. And also, obviously, the defensive side of things, teams were able to get in behind United's defensive duo in midfield. I mean, outnumbered, of course, a lot of the time. So it just caused a lot of problems. And Amorim never squared that circle.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few instances where I think Sky did a couple of pieces on it where he lost his man for the goal, but that wasn't really the problem. I don't get why he's always picked on by Roy Keane, by the way, as the biggest problem in Man United's history. But for me, it's the point that we touched upon that is worse is he's in the pivot. He gets the ball from defence. Amorim's football is very much, it's only successful when you suck a lot of players into one zone. So the number 10 drops, both central midfielders are close, the fullback is close as well. The pivot gets it, plays it to another player, that player turns and switches the ball, except this time the pivot is Bruno Fernandes. Like you said, he can't turn, and the people that he's giving the ball to, they can't turn and make the switch because they can turn and probably dribble like Cunha does, or they can turn and make the first pass that is correct, but then if they try it 3 more times, it doesn't work because he's Casemiro, or it's Mbeumo and you would rather have Mbeumo further up the pitch. So all this was going on throughout the season. You have to contextualize the fact that the team is constantly under pressure as well because they're losing. They literally go lost to Arsenal, draw to Fulham, win to Burnley, lose to City, win to Chelsea, lost to Brentford, and then those 3 wins at the end.
And Grimsby in the middle of that as well.
And Grimsby, which was like hitting the Titanic, and Amorim literally hit the roof at the end and said, "My players spoke very loud." So all this was going on. I think towards the end, the reason why it gets better is because, like I said, the attackers are bleeding in. Cunha can do certain things that Garnacho, Højlund, and Rashford the season before couldn't, or Mbeumo could do those things. And to a certain degree, Mount could chip in with a few goals here. And also, I want to touch upon it because we still have spoken about the positivity of it. Set-piece goals. Set-piece goals were still really, really saving Amorim. It was very much... Later, we'll speak about it in another part. They went and drew to Forest 2-2. They drew to Spurs 2-2 through a last-minute goal. But it was set-pieces. Again, there's just... In the first part, there was still... periods where you saw that this is probably not going to work. But just because we can see that there is periods where it might work, we're probably just going to stick to it. And also we're going to stick to it because we have a manager who is doing nothing but sticking to it. Although he does make some changes later on, and we can have more of a word about that.
We'll talk about all those changes, yeah. I mean, let's talk about, we'll give Amorim some, not entirely negative.
Hey, no, I gave him some. I gave him some.
Some. Right, so United were pressing fairly aggressively, and they were quite high up the rankings for high regains in this first part of the season. And, it's one of the most stark things that happened later in the season. Carrick decides that United are just not going to deploy a high press, basically. And I think that's to save Casemiro. And the metrics are very true. They give away far fewer big chances, even if the expected goals against wasn't that different. But so, give Amorim some flowers here.
Of course, yeah.
We're trying to press more aggressively, and they could do that, especially when they deployed Mount a false 9. I can't remember how many times it happens during this first part of the season, but it happened a couple of times at least. And Mbeumo is a good presser, and Cunha is a good presser. He doesn't track back, but he's a good presser. So at least in that first part, high regains or counter-pressing when the long ball came in and they're fighting for a second ball. And that was reasonably effective.
Yeah. Again, it might become a running theme throughout this podcast, but I want to see how many of those high regains were at home. But those high regains were better with Mason Mount in. One of the first goals against Chelsea when they won 2-1 I think Chelsea got a red and then we got a red. Might have been in the same half, or might have been maybe 2 minutes into the second. But one of the goals comes because they block Chelsea in defence very high up the pitch when they have a throw. Like I said, tries and hits the ball. It hits Diallo. They cross it, and then they eventually score. The pressing did get a lot better, and it's always a lot better when Mason Mount is in. It's just the problem is he'll likely get injured again. The other thing that I want to comment on that was... Okay, yeah, we've given him some praise. That's enough now. We'll go back to negative. But the other thing I want to comment on what they kept getting caught on in that first 9 or 10 games, and you see it in the City game, the centre-back pushing up to an attacker and being far too aggressive, like far too aggressive. We saw it against City, against Brentford as well, against Igor Thiago, who's now playing for Brazil somehow. He will literally drop 5 yards into the centre circle, a long ball from Brentford. Euro is aggressive, or Delict is aggressive. He turns, and then there's space in behind, and that comes again from being really aggressive, wanting to press high up the pitch. And again, it works at home because, I don't know, players are more fearful at Old Trafford and the crowd is roaring you on more, so the intensity is better and you are harder in the tackle and you fight in your duels a lot quicker. But again, it's just, there's a lot of toing and froing between, well, we're doing this and sometimes it's working and sometimes it's not. It's not that consistent. And then you add in on top of that, the league at this time is still figuring itself out because there's maybe, 2 good teams?
And we weren't one of them. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that third centre-back, because one of the features under Amorim, of course, right throughout his time was that the central centre-back basically has to push into midfield to make the extra man in build-up, So, I mean, most teams will build up with basically a 2-5-3 or something like that, right?
Or a 3-1-6. Ten Hag, it was 3-1-6.
Or a 3-1-6, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I say 5, but of course, most of those are attackers. So, yeah, a 3-2-5 or a 3-1-6. Is
I'm with you,
right? And United ended up, with one of the centre backs jumping all the time, either in build-up or to pressure the opposition. It's one of the things that made us particularly easy to get around. I mean, the really simple fix that Carrick has done, of course, is the extra man in midfield is a midfielder in Bruno Fernandes, right? So it's much better. Plus we have people who can actually build up when you have Kobbie Mainoo in the side. But it was a real feature, right? And everyone's like working it out. You got the tacticos on the internet trying to somehow justify this process.
I never did that.
No, I know you didn't. I was with horror watching a thread today. United paid an extraordinarily large amount of money to sack Amorim. It's 16.7 million plus a write-off of 5.2 million. That's just capital write-off. Is not. They already paid the money to Sporting, and someone trying to claim that was not worth the investment. Anyway, I just, people on the internet say really fucking stupid things in order to get attention. But it was a feature, this third centre-back coming into midfield. Never worked for United, was always vulnerable. And it was a feature, of course, of the opposition saying, hey, here's how we fucked United over in a press conference after United had lost again.
Yeah. I mean, it's... I had to look back at some of the sequences where it happened, and just again, not
all your favourites.
Not to be negative Nancy, but I just didn't see the point of it, because it's like they go into midfield, stand there. They're not marked. They're marked by a player, and that's it. They just stand there, which bleeds back into the point of they're just. This system might have worked if there was more movement and there was more freedom. It was just too static. The Delict goes into midfield, or is standing in midfield, is marked by a player, by a forward. The other 2 pivot players are marked. Why don't you push the central centre-back really ahead, or really wide, or really left, or really right? Inter Milan did it under Simone Inzaghi. And maybe Amorim thought that his players, to a degree, would start to learn that, and then that would improve the system, because there was some degree sometimes of the centre-back flying forward with the ball, but it's not something that they ever learned, and it's clearly not something that he ever instructed. Just as we go through from sort of the early parts of the season where it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, good at home, bad away, still recovering from the whole Grimsby thing, we get 3 wins in a row.
Sunderland, Liverpool, Brighton.
Yes, I think Brighton is the height of Amorim ball. I believe it was 4-2 and largely comfortable. I saw the first goal against Sunderland and I was like, wait, hold on, that was really good. And it basically comes from 3 centre backs at the back. Left back is really wide. The ball goes into Bruno Fernandes or Casemiro. They turn. They find a dropping forward. And then on top of that, what they crucially have is a wide right fullback in Amad Diallo. So you have, 4 or 5 players from Brighton or Sunderland pressing the defence and the midfield. They're bypassed. The number 10 gets it, flings it wide. But what you still have to ensure with when the ball is wide with this system is make sure that the cross is good. So for Mount's goal against Sunderland, Amad Diallo finds Mount. He's on the edge of the penalty area and manages to score. It's a really good finish. And a lot of the goals against Brighton were like that as well. So it was getting better, but I think a large part of it is I don't think they score those goals without Cunyan and Bumo. The Brighton ones, I think 2 of them again were like you know the way Cunyan shoots classically from outside the box, and you're like, actually he's got a good chance of this going in. So they do it in that manner. And then of course the Liverpool game where it's everybody. I think there's a little bit of an international break, so everybody goes in on a high off the back of that. It's Harry Maguire bashing it in with his head after Bruno Fernandes crosses it. And then you're thinking, well, finally, could United and Amorim be onto something here? They have better strikers up front. The style of football is looking a little bit better. Okay, they still get caught out, but now they have strikers who can answer back. Sort of weathered the early storm between Grimsby and losing constantly away and then winning at home. The new signings that they had, the 3 new strikers, they were firing, they were scoring. They were probably elevating the system from what it was and making it better than it looked. They're scoring from set pieces. They get a fantastic win away at Anfield with Maguire in the last minute. So just as you think things are getting better, in the second part we see how it's still not sustainable and still just too much evidence that this is just not going to work.
We'll come on to the second part. So what happens after United win 3 in a row, and we'll go from the 1st of November through to Amorim sacking. Before we do that, hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If for some reason you're listening to this and you're not a subscriber, do that as well. You can also find us on Patreon, patreon.com/NQAT pod. See you on part 2.